Chris Griffith, the program director here at Camp Gym, coming at you with our next Fireside devo. I'm excited to kind of introduce the topic here for the next few weeks. And that topic is going to be on the armor of God. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to intro the topic here today. And then over the next few weeks, we'll have some different people, some of our counselors, some of our staff, coming in and talking about some of those different pieces like the belt of truth and the breastplate of righteousness and those different things that you guys are probably a little bit more familiar with. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look right at the start of that passage where it talks about the armor of God in Ephesians. So that's Ephesians 6:10 through 13. So it says here, a final word, be strong with the Lord's mighty power. Put on all of the armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies and tricks of the devil. For we are not fighting against people made of flesh and blood, but against the evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against those mighty powers of darkness who rule this world, and against the wicked spirits in the heavenly realms. Use every piece of God's armor to resist the enemy in the time of evil, so that after the battle, you'll be standing firm. And that's awesome. That's the goal, right? We want to be standing firm at the end of the battle. But a lot of times in our thinking and whatnot, we kind of over dramatize what a battle looks like, and then it's not that we think of these things as, with sickness like cancer and other really life-threatening diseases, the car accident, or those big things. We see these as those big battles, and they are. But really the outcome of those battles and the different things that come up in our lives are determined by what's done before that battle even happens. And that's so true even in the real world. Most of the time, a battle is determined by how prepared one of the sides in that battle are. So that's kind of what I want to take a little bit of time as we introduce this topic to kind of look at. It's just some different things that we need to consider as we prepare to go into battle. So the first thing that we need to be considering is our awareness of the battlefield. So if we think we're going to war with an enemy that's fighting with sticks, and that they're in a hot climate, and that they're not very well trained, we get to war with them, we find out that they don't have sticks, they have swords, and they're really well trained, and turns out that the climate there is actually kind of cool, in fact so much that it's snowing. We wouldn't be dressed for it, we wouldn't have the proper weapons, and we wouldn't have the right mindset as we go into that battle. And it's also really important too, I think, to point out that Paul says here that we're not fighting against people of flesh and blood. And so many times we get caught up in this, it's those people that are causing these problems, and it's that person that got me upset and angry, and that sort of thing. But that's not, Paul says right here that that's not what we're fighting against. We're fighting against the evil forces that are behind those choices. We're fighting against the evilness that's at work in them. So it's so important to remember that we're fighting for these people, not against these people. We're trying to fight to rescue them out of those things. And when we have that in our minds, that changes how we approach them. And rather in anger or in an offense, we come to them, we come alongside of them with love. And so that's important to consider. Something else to consider is how prepared are you? If you're going to go into, if you look at the Middle Ages and castle sieges and that sort of thing, if you were on the defense, obviously you had to have enough food and water to survive. Same thing for on the offense. If you're laying siege to a castle, you have to have enough food and water to survive. Plus, you're away from your own castle, so you need to make sure you have all of the arrows, all of the swords, all of the stones for the catapults and all that kind of stuff, to be able to continue to lay siege to that castle. Because otherwise, if you're stretched out too far and not able to have a good supply chain there, obviously your siege is going to fail and the enemy is going to come out against you and overcome you. And so even in our own lives, that's important to be aware of. How are we feeding ourselves? What are the things that we're putting God in front of us for to have Him supply us with strength and with His love and grace in our lives, so that when we come into the battle and we are in the battle, that we have those supplies readily and alongside of us, instead of having to run away from the battle and go back and get those supplies. We can stay in that battle and fight those hard fights and see the glory of God through that. The last thing I want to talk about quick here is tactics and strategies. If you look here, part of that verse is putting on all of the armor of God so that you'll be able to stand firm against all the strategies and tricks of the devil. So we need to take time to do that. If you're going to face an enemy, you need to know kind of what their strategies might be, so that you can counter those strategies and have tactics that can work around those things and be able to ambush or at least be prepared to, again, to counter that attack. And that's so true for us if we're struggling with sin, whether that's maybe alcoholism or sexual addiction or anger or gossip or any of that kind of stuff. We need to be aware of those situations in which we're vulnerable to those things, because time and time again, it's if you look at those sins and you see the patterns there, you can see the different ways that Satan is at work in those times, and we can, if I'm going to go into the situation, I know I'm vulnerable at this point, so I need to go in that spot. When I'm going to that spot, I need to be prepared for that and have a strategy to deal with the feelings or the things that I'm thinking during those times. So those are just kind of some things to be aware of as we start to look at these things, and we're going to kind of dig deeper into some of those things as we look at the different pieces of armor. This is something that, it's not that we just get the armor and we put it on and wear it all day long. This is something that we have to put on day after day, so that we can come out and start to see those victories on a daily basis against the powers of the dark world. Even as I was preparing for our theme this summer, with the Stick to the Mission being based out of Joshua, I've been studying that book, and one of the passages that sticks out to me is Joshua 3:5, where he is talking to the Israelites and he says, "Purify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do great wonders among you." I think about that, and how often do I go to bed at night thinking about that sort of thing? Am I spending my bedtime going through my mind and going through the day and taking captive those things that I know shouldn't have happened, those things that I shouldn't have seen and gotten distracted by? Or am I just sitting there distracting and scrolling through my cell phone, looking at Facebook or something like that? So I need to make sure that we do this on a daily basis. And so that's kind of the intro to this topic. And that's kind of what I want to share with you guys. And as I said, we'll have more people coming up after me to talk about the different pieces of the armor. So I just ask you guys to pray with me and consider these things. I'll have some discussion questions down in the description here for you guys to kind of reflect on. And we'll see you guys with our next video. Thanks.